The envelope was on the mahogany desk when I walked in. No handshake, no eye contact, just that thin white rectangle. My name typed too neatly, as if someone had triple-checked it. "Effective immediately," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "Your role has been redefined to Special Projects Advisor. Compensation has been adjusted accordingly." That was it. Not a word about the largest contract in the company's history, which I had just secured last week. No thank you. Just a made-up title and a 60% pay cut. I didn't respond. Not out of shock, but because a chilling cold, sharper than the office air conditioning, was already creeping up my spine. A silent blade. My name is Catherine Hayes. I'm 42, and until 5 minutes ago, I was the Director of New Business and Sustainability at Viridian Dynamics. Last Wednesday, I closed Project Aurora, a $1.5 billion deal to supply sustainable biofuel to a European consortium for a decade. It took 18 months of late nights across different time zones, technical reports, formal dinners, and navigating the environmental laws of 3 different countries. I did that, alone. I should have been promoted. Instead, I was sitting across from Gregory, the CEO, a man who seemed to have forgotten how to say my name. 20 minutes earlier, just outside this very room, I was preparing my notes for the implementation plan. That's when the door opened. Ava came out first, beaming, wearing an expensive perfume with the confidence of someone who had just inherited the world. I trained her during her graduate program 3 years ago. Behind her, Gregory, laughing at something she said. They shook hands, complicit. Neither of them saw me. Now here I was, holding a letter that, by the smell of the toner, had been printed yesterday. They didn't just demote me, they started erasing me. The nameplate on the frosted glass door wasn't replaced, it was simply gone. Where it once read, Catherine Hayes, Director of New Business, there was now only a void. I stood there for a moment, unsure whether to knock or to grieve. That office, with the view of Millennium Park that I loved so much, was no longer mine. A kid from marketing walked past me, balancing 2 coffee trays, and did a double take. "Looking for someone?" he asked, not recognizing me. I forced a smile. "No, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Then I turned, holding the cardboard box that HR had labeled Personal Items, CH, and walked to the elevator. Down 3 floors, I ended up in a wing I hadn't visited since I was a junior analyst. That's where I found my new space. Not an office, a support cubicle. No window, no desk phone. The kind with low-rise partitions and a flickering fluorescent light. On the wall opposite, newly printed and laminated, hung the new company org chart. I walked slowly towards it, searching for any trace of myself. I wasn't there. Not at the top, not in the middle, not even in the footnotes. Ava Sterling had taken my spot, Director of Global Strategy and Sustainability. The caption under her smiling photo read, "A bold vision for America's energy future." The sharp ache in my chest wasn't anger. It was mourning. Mourning for the version of me that had poured everything into this place. I wasn't just replaced. I was deliberately erased. I didn't sleep for 18 months. I counted. From the first feasibility spreadsheets done at 2 in the morning to the final video call with the consortium in Berlin, which ended after midnight, I was the only person who understood the complexity of Project Aurora. And now, sitting in that cold cubicle, I wondered how they forgot that so quickly. No, they didn't forget. They never bothered to understand. There were weeks I traded my Chicago apartment for dusty lodgings in West Texas, personally verifying the certifications of the wind farms. Mornings when, with my boots covered in red dust, I reviewed carbon emission reports straight from the field. And then there was that June, 2 days before my son's graduation, when I was stuck at a port in Houston resolving a strike that threatened the entire export logistics. I watched the ceremony on a shaky video call. He said he understood, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. I gave Viridian everything, every hour, every sacrifice. And when Helios Energy, our biggest competitor, approached me 4 months ago with an offer to head their international division, I refused. "I'm loyal to Viridian," I told them. They offered double. I said no. I went back to my office, closed the door, and kept working on the Aurora contract. That contract was my legacy, and at its heart was Writer 7B. It wasn't part of the standard template. It came up during a tense lunch in Chicago. The director of the European Consortium, a German named Klaus, was direct. "We've been burned by greenwashing before. We need a real, auditable guarantee. If the person who built this framework doesn't oversee the implementation, the deal is dead." So I wrote the writer myself, in dense, technical language. The quarterly validation of the carbon traceability chain for the purposes of compliance with EPA regulations and the Paris Agreement shall be the non-transferable responsibility of the project's technical manager, Catherine Hayes. They signed. We celebrated. And now that line I wrote to protect the project's integrity had become my only defense. Hidden in plain sight, unread by those too arrogant to believe I was indispensable. If you want to see how a single line in a contract can bring down an empire, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the outcome of this story. The next morning, I arrived at 9, as always. No one expected it. After the humiliation, the backstabbing, they probably assumed I'd disappear quietly or make a scene. But I showed up, hair in a bun, blazer pressed, eyes forward, and nobody knew what to do with me. Ava walked past my cubicle that morning. She said nothing, just a sideways glance, as if deciding between a fake smile and looking away. I gave her nothing in return. No smile, no bitterness, no reaction. Across the hall, Gregory's door remained shut. He hadn't spoken to me since the demotion, not even for a formal handover. I didn't chase them. I didn't demand to be heard. Instead, I turned on my computer and started writing emails. Not for job applications. They were projects. One by one, I reconnected with people I trusted. Agricultural engineers I'd spent all-nighters at refineries. Logistics experts who owed me more than one deadline. And even a former Viridian director who now ran an environmental consultancy in D.C. I didn't ask for help. I just asked questions. Subtle, strategic ones. If a specialist in biofuel compliance for the European market were available next quarter, would there be any interest? How's EPA enforcement looking lately? Do you still oversee carbon certification audits? I wasn't planting seeds. I was checking the soil conditions. On Thursday, during my lunch break, I took a call from an unknown number, 202 area code, D.C. "Catherine Hayes?" a calm, professional female voice asked. "Yes," I replied, straightening up in my chair. "My name is Dr. Evelyn Reed. I'm an independent auditor in international environmental law. I've just reviewed the Viridian Aurora agreement at the request of a mutual client." My heart quickened. "I believe you're the author of Writer 7B. "I am," I said carefully. There was a pause. Then she said, "It's a work of art. Precise language, direct intent, and legally ironclad in any European court. They have no idea what they gave them. They're blind. That writer was the smartest part of the entire deal, and they just walked right over it as if it were a footnote." I exhaled slowly. A cold relief and a powerful confirmation washed over me. I didn't go to Berlin. Ava did. She left on Monday, strutting through the international terminal as if she'd earned the right to be there. High heels, a new leather briefcase the company gave her. I heard she even made a LinkedIn post with the caption, "Kicking off the new era of American green energy in Europe." What she didn't know, what no one at Viridian knew, was that the name Catherine Hayes wasn't just on the contract's signature page. It was engraved in its most crucial technical terms, in the clause that guaranteed its integrity. The notification hit Viridian HQ at 4 p.m. like a lightning bolt from a clear sky. A formal email from the European Consortium's legal department. It was short, cold, and precise. As per Writer 7B of the Project Aurora Agreement, validation of the carbon chain compliance is the non-transferable responsibility of Miss Catherine Hayes. We do not recognize substitutes. All implementation meetings are suspended until no further notice. They copied everyone,
Gregory, legal, the board of directors, no euphemisms, no room for negotiation. And just like that, the $1.5 billion project was orphaned, with no one to guide it, because I wasn't in Berlin, and no one had asked me to be. I found out when a manager from legal walked past my cubicle, pale-faced. She said nothing, but her expression said it all. Panic began to spread in whispers in the hallways and in message groups that were quickly silenced. No one mentioned my name out loud, but they didn't have to. I didn't need to be in that meeting room in Berlin. I didn't need to raise my voice or complain. I just had to wait. And I waited. That night, at 8, I was still at my desk, sipping cold coffee and watching the unread messages pile up in the manager's inboxes. Subject lines like, urgent, Writer 7B, contractual clarification. Did you write this part of the deal? All sent in a panic, none of them addressed to me, but my name was in every single one. The next day, Ava didn't show up, but the rumor was that she came back from Berlin early on an economy flight she had to rebook herself. I didn't care if it was true. I had done nothing but be remembered, and they had done everything to be forgotten. If you're enjoying watching this comeback, subscribe to the channel. The best part is yet to come. By 9 the next morning, the executive floor was vibrating with panic. You could hear it through the glass walls. Fast footsteps, voices too sharp for casual conversation. No one smiled, no one made eye contact. I didn't need a calendar invite to know what was happening. Gregory had called an emergency board meeting. While I sat in my cubicle pretending to review a report no one would read, the top brass at Veridian scrambled. Phones rang nonstop, legal was huddled behind a locked door, and in the main boardroom, it wasn't pretty. A friend in legal who owed me a big favor sent me a single text. Gregory is trying to blame us. It's not going to stick. They were pointing fingers everywhere. First, Gregory claimed Writer 7B had slipped through because legal was understaffed. Then, he argued the European consortium was being overly pedantic and could be talked around. Finally, he blamed me for getting too deep in the technical weeds, creating an unnecessary dependency. That part made me laugh, a quiet, bitter laugh. I heard it was Arthur, one of the oldest and most discreet board members, who cut through the noise. He raised his hand and said slowly, "Let's stop pretending this was an oversight." I recall a conversation weeks before the signing where Gregory said Catherine's overexposure needed to be managed so it wouldn't overshadow the brand. A dead silence filled the room. At 2 in the afternoon, the final blow came. An email from the consortium. Subject, Project Aurora, formal notice of contract termination. The body was brutal in its precision. Due to the unilateral change of technical personnel in direct violation of Writer 7B, the consortium considers the contract null and void. All associated obligations are hereby dissolved. It wasn't just sent to the executive team, but also to the investors group inbox. That night, the light in Gregory's office stayed dark. I was there, calm, uninvited, still present. The call came on a Wednesday at 10 in the morning. I was having a coffee at the cafe across the street for the first time in months without feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. Unknown number, Chicago area code. I almost didn't answer. I was tired of everything, but something told me to take it.
Catherine Hayes? A smooth voice asked. Yes, speaking. This is David Chen from Helios Energy. We spoke a few months ago. I believe the timing wasn't right for you then. I paused, watching the street life through the window. I remember, I replied. Well, I'm hoping the timing is right now, he continued. I'd like to revisit our proposal, with a few upgrades. I walked slowly back to my desk, the warm coffee cup in my hand, but already forgotten. David didn't waste time. He laid it all out clearly. Doubled my old salary, equity, and a new role created for me, Chief Officer of Global Sustainable Operations. And one more thing, he added, his voice a little lower. This wasn't just our idea. We were encouraged to reach out to you again.
By whom? I asked. There was a pause. Then, by Klaus himself, the director of the European Consortium. He called you the only non-negotiable asset of the project, said the deal fell apart because you weren't in it, and that he won't sign the next one without you. For a moment, I said nothing. I just leaned back in the uncomfortable chair Viridian had given me and looked at the cubicle wall. I remembered the feeling of being erased, of being reduced to silence. And now here I was, not begging, not applying, being invited, chosen. David, I said carefully, I appreciate the offer, but before we talk numbers again, I have a condition. Of course, he replied quickly. What do you need? I build my team. I approve every hire in my division, especially in technical auditing and logistics. No exceptions. Another pause, but shorter this time. Done, he said. Anything else? Yes, I added. One more thing. I don't just want to oversee deals. I want full life cycle authority, from negotiation to implementation to renewal. You'll have it, David answered. No hesitation. By the end of the call, I hadn't said yes, but I hadn't said no either. I hung up, placed the phone face down on the desk, and looked out the window. This was no longer about revenge. It was about restoration, about what happens when you don't just survive being erased. You become the name they can't move forward without. And this time, I wasn't waiting for permission. I was making the call. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped onto the executive floor of Helios Energy in the heart of downtown Chicago. Marble, floor-to-ceiling glass, a panoramic view of the city that seemed to whisper about the future. From my blazer pocket, I pulled out my new card. Catherine Hayes, Chief Global Operations Officer. 3 months ago, my name had been scraped off a door. Now, it was engraved in the strategy that would define the future of clean energy. As I walked towards the boardroom, I passed a lounge where a large screen displayed headlines from the Wall Street Journal. I didn't stop, but I saw the ticker. Viridian Dynamics announces restructuring and 150 layoffs after failed billion-dollar deal. Gregory Thorne resigns as CEO. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. I felt release, as if a weight I had carried for years had finally been lifted. My phone buzzed in my hand, a WhatsApp message from Ava. Kat, can we talk? I think I made a mistake. I looked at the message for a second. Then I locked the screen and slipped the phone into my bag. No reply, no explanation. There was nothing left to say. I pushed open the boardroom door and stepped inside. The energy shifted. In my hands was a new proposal, a $2.7 billion deal to supply sustainable aviation fuel, and, just like before, a rider written in plain language, which the team now called the Hayes Clause. All operations must remain under my direct supervision. As I took my seat at the head of the table, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about legacy. Not the kind they print in brochures, but the kind that echoes in silence. If this story resonated with you, I want to know how far it has traveled. Leave a comment telling me what city or country you're watching from. It's incredible to know we're not alone. And of course, if you believe in the power of second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's show every person who has ever felt erased that silence, sometimes, is the prelude to the greatest victory.